Hello, beautiful. Decided to change from hello, beautiful people to hello, beautiful. I think every day it's nice to be told we're beautiful. So maybe it makes it a little more personal to say hello, beautiful. So, hello, beautiful. I will go ahead and grab some stuff and put it in the chat here on Reddit. So it's nice and handy for people. I'm Josh from Atlanta, Georgia, and I just come here every day at 5 Eastern Standard Time to give dad advice, to give perspective on maybe what you're dealing with in life, to hear just from a dad, because that's all I am. I'm just a dad, just a random dude on the internet, 45 years old, that comes here pretty much every day to offer some things that maybe I've learned along the way that I wish I'd known when I was in my 20s. And maybe you'll find them helpful. At least that's the idea. So let me go ahead and put that, my contact information and all that kind of good stuff in the comments as people start approaching, start joining. Today, let's see, I guess I'll talk a little bit. Today I've been thinking about boredom. That's been my personal topic. So I'll just talk about what I've been learning and thinking about boredom. And then as people, hello, big boy, as people join, we can learn from some of their questions and talk to some of their questions. But, in particular for me, I'm privileged enough to be in a point in my life that I'm experiencing boredom, because boredom is definitely a privilege, right? That's the first thing that I've come to realize, is that not everybody has the opportunity for boredom, right? So it's a privilege. And I've been thinking a little bit about what is boredom? What does it offer? What does it bring to light? And what I realized was that a nice way to approach boredom was like I do a lot of other emotions, right? And maybe by me, sometimes I have trouble kind of expressing things I've learned because they're so just intuitive now to me that it's hard to step back and give over what I've learned along the way. But I think with boredom is a good example where something that I'm kind of actively engaged in looking at, and then therefore I can kind of share it with you as I'm doing it. So what I've come to realize, and obviously there are different types of boredom, right? So for me, the boredom that I'm kind of looking at is when I just have nothing to do. So it's not like that I'm sitting and I'm watching something and I'm bored of it, or I'm reading something and I'm bored of it, or I'm in a class and I'm bored. It's, for me, the boredom that I'm working on is when all my work is done, no one's around, I have no one to hang out with, and I'm just bored. So typically, I think when we're bored, we find a way to not be bored, because it's an unpleasant feeling, right? So anytime we have unpleasant feelings, that's kind of a note to us to create some change. So we might take that and we might do something that would not be boring, right? So we'll read a book, we'll go do something. I think COVID in particular has been an interesting time, because it's really a lot of the things that I would normally do to get out of a place of boredom aren't available to me. So if nothing else, what I'm doing is I'm taking the opportunity to explore boredom for myself. And, that's something that I'm learning about and we'll share a little bit about. So, so what I've noticed is that clearly there's this discontent that kind of sits there when I'm bored, and I'm like, I want to distract myself from, right? So I think sometimes maybe I distract myself through reading or through whatever it might be that I'm doing, but instead I've decided, well, no, I'm not going to distract myself. I'm going to lean into the boredom. And the lesson really here, I think, for you is that sometimes there's an opportunity for you to, when you're experiencing something uncomfortable, right? Because that's how our body reacts. When our body's uncomfortable, and it can be through anxiety, it can be through anger, it can be through all different ways that we get uncomfortable. And it's our body's way of telling us that something's a bit off, right? That's the feeling. That it's something we can tangibly feel inside us. So with boredom, when I have this feeling, so instead of choosing to do something to get rid of the feeling, I'm actually leaning into it and seeing what is the experience of boredom to me, which I'd encourage you to do if you're an anxious person. So instead of just trying to distract yourself from the anxiety, lean into the anxiety. If you're an angry person, instead of trying to distract yourself from the anger or the sadness or whatever negative feelings that you're having, lean into them, feel them, and try to learn the lessons. Because sometimes in learning the lessons, what I think you'll find is that you can see through the emotions, the emotional state, and it enables kind of greater comfort in the long run. But it's a scary thing to do. It's not something we're comfortable with. Our natural reaction, right? There's a reason why we don't stay in a state of boredom or a state of anxiety or whatever. It's because our natural body is been trained to step away from these negative feelings, right? So, but what I'm suggesting is step into them a little bit, and see how they feel. Try them on. See, what are they saying to you? So that's what I've been kind of looking at and exploring and seeing what they say to me. And what I'm hearing it saying so far is some aspect of you're here to accomplish, right? Which again, this is going to be a societal belief, right? That we're just here to do. Now, again, a lot of these beliefs, there's a reason behind them, right? Because if we didn't do anything, looks like I lost it. And start up again. I don't know why it's doing this every day to me, but I will start again. All right. So what I was saying was that, and I don't know why my phone keeps cutting off second day in a row, but sorry for that. But what I was talking about is boredom. And to continue the thought is that, so now what I've done is I've recognized and I've kind of leaned into the boredom a little bit, and I'm paying attention to the boredom a little bit. And what I'm seeing is that it's saying to me, hey, Josh, you need to be doing something, right? You need to be actively engaged in some productive role. And what I do know about that is there's one of two places that's probably coming from. Either it's a societal belief that society has placed on me, and now I have an opportunity to kind of question that belief and ask, is that something that I truly believe, right? Do I actually believe that I need to be productive? And the answer is right now, probably not. And the other thing is that it's somewhat of a protective belief, right? But if my ancestors hadn't felt a need to constantly strive, maybe they would have starved, or maybe they wouldn't have been safe, or whatever protective mean that it needed, which for me is also no longer true. So now those are the kind of what I've kind of looked at it from a boredom perspective, and I can kind of try to feel maybe a little bit more comfortable with boredom, maybe make myself a little bit more peaceful and at peace with boredom. So that's what I learned this morning. That was something I learned, and I wanted to share that. And now let's go ahead over to questions. Perhaps you have some questions. I'd encourage the more detail you can give me in the question, the more I can actually answer your specific question, as opposed to the more general response that I'd probably provide. Also, my numbers here, 470-575-0111, if you want to kind of talk through a specific issue and maybe get to the bottom of why something's bothering you, as opposed to just general advice from me. But maybe we can dig a little bit deeper and see where it takes us. Hello, Grumpy Ragdoll. Well, I thought today was Thursday. But we're talking about boredom, and I don't want to bore you too much, because that's not really my goal here. My goal is to actually maybe give some ideas that you haven't thought about before, or share some thoughts and a different perspective than you normally hear. That's kind of the goal of this exercise. One of the goals of this exercise, because like most things in life, there are multiple goals, right? So nothing's ever really just one thing, right, that we do. There's multiple things that are all coming in a certain direction. And so what we want to do is maybe recognize all the different things, and that, gives us a little bit more internal guidance. So, okay. Hi, Dad. Keeping it cool. I got a question. Excellent. Thank you for the question. I appreciate that at a personal level. So thank you for that. Hi, Dad. Do you think I should continue with my safe job even though I find it boring, or change jobs? So I think that ultimately you're going to have to make that decision, right? I think that's a very personal decision that you have to decide for yourself. So this is a good example of something where I can feel one way, but that's not you, right? So I want you to feel for yourself what feels appropriate for you. So it's not what society says, it's not what your friends say, it's about what you say. And so this is something I think like that. So, but I can't look at the pros and cons of both things, right? The safety, you already kind of spoke to that, right? It's safe. You got money coming in, so you don't have to worry. But the negative is that you find it boring. So the opportunity here, I think, is one of adventure, one of maybe more self. I'm trying to draw a blank on the word, but like self-experience, right? So you're more alive. Personally, what would I do? Probably depends on the timing, right? In the middle of COVID, I might stick with safe, right? To me, that might I think that's a variable that right now I might be like, you know what? I'm gonna deal with this for another 3 months and kind of see where we are, 6 months and see where we are, because it's very possible that the economy could tank, and I'm not going to take that risk. Whereas in a normal time period, right, when there isn't kind of a weird thing going on in my general environment, I might say, I'm just going to go find something else. But the one thing I would throw out there is that I don't want you to jump ship until you know where you're going. Right? I think sometimes we just get so fed up and we're so bored that we're just like, screw it, I'm out of here. And I think that's a bad idea. It doesn't matter where you are in your career. That's just general career advice. Never jump ship until not only do you have a job, but you have it in writing from the company you're going to, and you have a start date. Like, you literally want a start date. Never quit a job until you have a start date that you can begin your next job. I've seen too many times where people have quit their jobs only to find out that it just didn't work out at the new place, and then they're stuck. So that is one piece of advice that I'd throw out there as well. So, but good luck, as you make that personal decision for yourself, right? And again, it's just based on too many variables that for me to give something specific, but hopefully I've given you some thoughtful information that you can use. Okay, so what else we got here? Hi, I'm 17, and I know I'm going to go out and get a job soon, and I'm worried about it because I'm very introverted. I'm not a people person, and that seems to be something people are looking for. What should I do? So I think the first thing, there's two fears here. One is going to be the interview process and getting the job, right? So are you going to make a good impression? Are you going to come across effectively? And the other thing is the job itself. So the first thing I think I can help you with a little bit, and that's really just, I want you to go and I want you to sit down in front of people and have some experience interviewing. So that can be your family, it can be your siblings, it can be your friends. These are the kind of situations where the more you can literally and just role play and just say, look, you're the boss and I want you to sit down here and I'm going to walk in here and we're going to talk. The more you can role play, the more comfortable you're going to be. And the more, with a lot of things in life, the more experience we have doing things, the better we get at it, just because we're more comfortable with it and it's less unknown. Have them ask you questions. Have them role play the experience you're going to have. So when you actually go in, it's not it's that big of a deal. The other part you mentioned is kind of the introversion, which sometimes, I guess you mean you're kind of shy perhaps. I think what you want to try to capture in some way is, from an employer, what they want to see is they want to see some passion, right? I want to see as an employer that you have something engaging in you. And again, it depends on the role, right? Some roles probably don't require that. But I do think that if you can bring that out, even though you're introverted, it doesn't matter. But if you can kind of talk about something you're passionate about, and And what you'll see when you talk about something that you're passionate about is that your energy is going to change. And because what I want to know is that when you're going to bring some passion to the job. That's an important thing for me as a hiring manager. So find that thing internally that you feel is kind of that passionate space, whatever it might be, and start talking about it at some point in the interview, so you have that opportunity to bring out some of that energy. The other thing I'd encourage is that you really just try to be a little bit more extroverted. And I know that can be difficult, right? You can have some social anxiety around that, and it might be something you need to work on in the therapy or some other means, right? So there are plenty of ways that you can work on that as a skill. It's a skill you learn. So there's a lot of things that you can teach yourself to get better at it. So it's almost, if you can go into it almost acting, right? So it's almost, I'm gonna give you an acting job, and your acting job is to act extroverted, not to sit in your head as much. And again, that's not gonna really help the overall issue. The overall issue probably needs a little bit more work. It probably needs some work with a therapist and learning about social anxiety, perhaps, if that's what it is, right? Introversion and social anxiety are very different things. But I think what I'm hearing from you is that you're shy, which is more kind of a social anxiety thing sometimes. So, but I think, look, you're going to do great. I have no question. You're going to do awesome because you're aware of it, and you're going to walk into the interview creating some awareness around where your weakness is, and you're going to actually fight yourself to come out a little bit more extroverted, a little bit more passionate, and bring that forth. And if you want a place to exercise it, do a stream here and just try to be extroverted in a stream. I'm actually an introvert. It wouldn't come across, I don't think, in my stream, but I am. I'm very much an introvert. And sometimes I'm an extrovert. I mean, we're all a spectrum of everything. That's kind of what we are. That's what humans are. We're spectrums. So, but I think this would be a great place to try to pretend you're extroverted and just tell people that's what you're doing, and just get the feedback and see what people say. But these are just some tools that might be helpful. So I hope they are helpful, and good luck on the job. Dad, it feels like my life is out of control. My chronic eczema tells me my immune system is wearing down because of chronic insomnia. It's very hard for me to relax. I don't know what to do with the vicious cycle. So, and this is probably a little bit beyond my expertise. So I'm going to encourage you to really, there's a lot of stuff to unpack in kind of what you've just shared, but I'll share some things from me personally. Insomnia to me is always an inclination that I'm anxious about something. Now, and I know there's some physical and some health aspects to that as well, but I know for me that anytime I'm waking up in the middle of the night, I'm anxious. And so I know that if I want to stop waking up in the middle of the night, I need to stop being anxious. Now, you've stated, that you're out of control, and that certainly creates anxiety. Anytime we feel our life is out of control, that's when we're feeling anxious. That's what that's all about. So I think what the goal for you is to start controlling your anxiety, I think, right? And I do think that, it does strike me that immune system stuff and anxiety kind of go hand in hand, right? The tighter we get, it seems to be something there. I don't even think that's scientific. It's just something I've noticed, that there does seem to be some interplay between anxiety and immune system stuff. So Grumpy Ragdoll, what is it that feels out of control? And so, I mean, we can talk about anxiety. I don't see any other questions. So, and anxiety is something I've spent a lot of time dealing with my own personal life. I'm happy to share thoughts on. But to me, this is all about really getting anxiety under control, getting to a place where you can sleep again. And it might be that you need some meds to help you sleep. If the cycle starts with the sleeping, So maybe some medicine that can help you sleep is a short-term remedy. But I don't want to just give you short-term remedies. I want to give you like long-term, right? What's the path out, right? What's the path out? And so to me, it's about kind of controlling your anxiety and learning how to manage your anxiety. So how have I done some of that? Some of the things I've learned is that I've started to pay attention more to my thoughts, right? What are the thoughts that are causing my anxiety? What are they saying? Can I actually stop the anxious thought and rather pay attention to what's being said, and then questioning that thought? I read the other day, which is a kind of a helpful idea, is that 90% or 97% of things that we're anxious about never happen. And the more you live and the more you see things not happening, I think you'll find that you can start saying to yourself, oh, wait a second, I've been anxious before. And this is for me, actually where I am in life at this point. A lot of the time when I get anxious, I'm like, you know what, Josh, you've been anxious before and you've had all this worry that's taking you in a whole mess of places. Do you really want to do that again? Wouldn't it just be simpler not to be anxious and just to let things play out? And that's something that's helped me a lot. Someone, I have it downstairs, and I think it's a nice idea. I have a statement of anxiety is a misuse of your imagination. And I think it's such a true statement, right? The people with the largest imaginations, I think, have the largest amount of anxiety because they're able to imagine all these things that could happen, all these scenarios, right? They make those up. That's a pretty creative endeavor, right? But the reality is, chances are, it's going to work out just fine. And if you want proof, is just, and this is also something, is that you can look back and say, look at all these times I was anxious, but it worked out just fine. And I handled things. And having some self-confidence that you'll be able to handle this too, even if it does not work out. Because you always handle things, and you've always been able to handle things. So I think those are some things some tools that I've used and that have helped me with anxiety. But I do think the most important of all those is probably starting to challenge your own belief system, because there's probably a lot of things that you're telling yourself that you aren't even aware that you're telling yourself, that if you can start becoming aware of, you can limit the amount of anxiety that you'll have around those topics. Okay. But I do hope that you find peace in a real way with, that you can get back with sleeping. It's nothing worse than not sleeping. That's the worst. That's the worst. But that also, you know what? Part of the reason your body reacts like that is it's trying to tell you got to change something. So the question is, what do you need to change? Because there's probably some stuff that you can change in your life to make your life overall less angst provoking. So take advantage of these messages that your body's sending to create change in your life. Hey, Dad. Fragrant Travels asks, I'm trying to get back on track with my career. I'm a nursing assistant at the moment and like to eventually get my degree for an RN. I'd like to try to get a job at a local hospital. My problem is I have some anxiety issues. And that's where it cuts off. So not sure where to go with that. I will throw in my contact info here in case, I think it's at the top, but it's here too. If somebody wants to call and talk through something, I'm happy to chat it through with them. 470-575-0111. And we can kind of talk through what you're dealing with. I'll also throw, if this has been interesting to you, I have kind of the meta channel on Reddit of VDAD, r/VDAD, where I'll just post these and typically whatever topics I've talked about that day, and you can choose the ones that sound interesting. And then also on YouTube, I have a channel that I need a couple people to subscribe to. I think I'm up to 88. I need another 12 people, so I can stop asking people to subscribe and then name my channel, and people can find me there. Okay, so back to Fragrant Travels questions. wants to get a job at a local hospital. Nursing assistant wants to move to an RN, which is kind of a more advanced degree there, or a more advanced role. My problem is I have some anxiety issues I'm still working on. I'm unsure if I'll be successful in that environment. Any advice? I have no question that you'll be successful in that environment. And you know how I know that? Because you're successful in the environment you're in now. And so that just shows me that you're successful in whatever environment you put yourself. And so the question is, do you believe that to be true for yourself? Does that make sense? You've already proven that you're successful. So changing environments, you're going to be successful there too, because that's just what you do. You go from success to success. So, and there's nothing specifically different about that environment. It's a different environment. You're going to have more skills and you carry those with you into that new environment. So whatever environment you're in, you can take the success that you carry currently with you. So since there are no more questions, I will take a moment to chat about what I typically like to bring, kind of awareness around, which is this perspective of wholeness, whole person, the whole person model, whole person theory. And that's the idea that typically, I think what you might find for yourself is you focus on the one or two negative aspects of yourself. But the truth is, you're more than those one or two attributes, right? So it's not fair to harp and hyper focus on those one or two negative attributes, because the reality is that you're a person that's made up of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of positive things. So why should you focus just on the one or two things? I do it, you do it, we all do it, right? That's just kind of human nature. And there's probably a reason behind why we do that, right? It's probably a reason that keeps us it makes us improve, it keeps us on our toes, but you don't have to do it anymore because you now have awareness that you're doing it. And once you have awareness, you can see yourself as a whole person with both some faults, a lot of positives, but a whole person. And in that, you can see your own internal beauty, right? Because that's what makes you unique. In a way, some of these flaws are part of your beauty. If you date someone, you'll start to see that some of their flaws are part of what you like about them. It's part of what makes them, makes them special. So that's what I want you to be able to understand, is that you're beautiful in your wholeness. And what it also allows you to do, which I think is key, is it allows you to look at other people and see their own beauty, not focus on the couple negative traits they have, but rather see it in them as well. You see their beauty. And once you start seeing other people's beauty, you start seeing your own beauty. And it just kind of like this beauty fest. So yeah, so that's just something I always like to kind of start out with and end with, and I just threw it in kind of at the middle today, because I think it's an important lesson that I wasn't aware of, and I try to share those things. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, so back to Grumpy Ragdoll talking about negative thoughts are not true, negative self-talks. Talk some more about that a little bit. I'm actually, I'll probably end on that today. I actually got a little bit of work I got to take care of this afternoon. So the thing I want you to pay attention to is that, and in fact, I think I told someone to talk about anger yesterday, so maybe I'll talk about anger a little bit today. Now, anger is not something that I have a lot of. It's not something that was in my house. It's not something I learned. I do think that a lot of emotions we learn from our environment. In fact, I once read an article that there's actually like an emotion that we don't even have, that there's like this Aboriginal tribe that has, but we don't have it. It's just not part of our environment. But it's like in emotions, like, sadness, we have sadness, they have sadness, but they also have another thing. I forget what it was called. But I do think that a lot of our emotional state comes from the environment we're raised in. And anger wasn't something that there was a lot of in my house. And so I don't have a great understanding of anger. But here's what I know about all emotions, is that there's something in us that we can feel, but they're fed by thoughts, right? So what I want you to try to pay attention to are what are the thoughts that are going on. So it can be anxiety, it can be anger, right? All these things are just, if you really feel it, if you try to feel like, what does anger feel like? What does anxiety feel like? I think what you'll see is they all kind of feel somewhat similar. They're just this negative something in us, right? And it's hard to kind of put your finger on, but that's because I think that at the end of the day, all feelings are kind of some aspect of, or a lot of feelings, or some aspect of this spectrum of some internal feeling, but they're all created through different means. So some would be through anxiety, some would be through anger, some would be through sadness, but they all have thoughts. And so what I want you to try to do is to pay attention to whatever that thought might be that's creating it. So if it's anxiety, I want you to start paying attention and maybe seeing if you can hear, is the thought, I'm going to fail? Is the thought, I'm scared people are going to laugh at me? What's that thought that's making you socially anxious? And see if you can listen. If it's anger, is the thought, I'm not in control? Is the thought, I'm hurt? Right? What's the thought that's making you angry? Is only once you create awareness of your thoughts that you can be in control, because until then they're in control of you, right? So your emotions will be in control of you. So the goal is to be able to step back and create that awareness that allows you to control your own life and not be subject to the whims of the arbitrary self that you are. Does that make sense? So with that in mind, I probably do need to stop a little bit earlier today. I will hopefully be back here again tomorrow at 5 Eastern Standard. As always, I try to be here every day. But I do think for today, I'm going to have to stop with that. And I hope you're all well and that you fully appreciate your own beauty and can see that today, and live in that space of beauty, because I see it. So I hope you do too. Be well. Bye-bye.